Friends, before we begin this chapter, I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. To everyone who has supported me, liked my work, watched and stuck with me from the very beginning. A massive thank you to each and every one of you. And believe me, today's chapter is going to be absolutely explosive. It is packed with intense action, major revelations, and certain developments that could completely transform the entire story. So without further ado, let's dive into today's spectacular chapter. The monster had now fully revealed itself. It stood before Lu Fan, a deep glint of greed flickering in its eyes. A mocking smile curled upon its lips as it spoke in a low voice. "Oh, do you truly possess the audacity to even think of raising a weapon against me?" Lu Fan offered no reply. His face remained calm, yet a storm of thoughts raged within him. Did these ancient ruins truly conceal the infant form of an ancient deity? Or had Professor Iog merely sent me here to retrieve some vital research material? For a moment he felt conflicted. After all, for what purpose had I truly come here? After a brief silence, a cold resolve suddenly flashed in his eyes. Since this divine bone, the remnant of an ancient deity, has awakened prematurely, its power surely has not yet reached its zenith. This means destroying it now should be relatively easy. And this is the perfect opportunity to eradicate it completely. I will not let it escape at any cost. Having made his decision, Lu Fan immediately issued a command. One by one, all his dragon companions began to manifest: Jiao, Jia, Ji, Jin Chen, Star Dragon, Poison Dragon. And finally, Lu Fan himself transformed into his dragon form. In an instant, a host of colossal dragons began to circle around him. Their bodies shifted and morphed continuously, their powers intertwining with one another, and from their midst a terrifying aura erupted. The entire area trembled. The air grew heavy, the atmospheric pressure began to rise rapidly. Without a shred of hesitation, Lu Fan unleashed his full power. At that very moment, each of his dragon companions activated their unique abilities. The poison dragon unleashed the full might of its venom. The star dragon's energy began to blaze across the sky. A storm of destructive forces crashed directly upon that ancient deity. But even after the assault subsided, no visible wounds appeared on the ancient deity's body. On the contrary, he merely smiled. His smile held a blend of both disdain and amusement. Then he spoke softly. "Oh, Lu Fan, do you truly think you are such a big deal?" Upon witnessing this scene, Lu Fan understood everything. Despite their relentless attacks, the monster remained largely unaffected. Severed tentacles would regenerate within moments, as if they had never been harmed at all. And most importantly, the monster's main body remained completely unscathed. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed. So that's it. An ancient god possessing terrifying regenerative powers. Then, he suddenly recalled how he had defeated the previous ancient god. His gaze instantly sharpened. If it can constantly heal itself, then we must keep wearing it down. Without wasting a single moment, he issued a command to all his dragons. Focus all attacks on its tentacles. Give it no chance to regenerate. Keep attacking relentlessly. Upon receiving the order, the dragons sprang into action. The sky trembled with the force of their roars. One after another, devastating attacks rained down upon the monster's tentacles. Fire, poison, energy, and raw, colossal power, everything was focused on a single target. The severed tentacles would regenerate, only to be shattered once again the very next instant. The battle had now evolved into a direct contest of endurance and regeneration. At that same moment, the ice dragon activated its power. Blizzard Prison. In an instant, the sky thundered. A fierce blizzard swept out in all directions. The freezing winds converged to form a massive cage of ice, engulfing the entire battlefield in its grasp. Every enemy caught within its radius began to suffer continuous frost damage. The air began to freeze. The ground became blanketed in ice. The enemy's movement slowed drastically, as if invisible chains had bound their bodies. At that very moment, the poison dragon also surged forward. Showing no mercy, he unleashed the full force of his venomous power. Thick, toxic smoke billowed across the battlefield, ready to engulf everything in its path. But the monster did not waver. He merely slowly raised his head and looked directly at Lu Fan. There was a strange, chilling calm in his eyes. Then a faint smile appeared on his lips. "So, Lu Fan, do you have even the slightest idea what you are actually doing?" An unfathomable darkness swirled within the demon's eyes, and His voice suddenly grew heavy and grave. "You have angered an ancient god." For a fleeting moment, the entire region seemed to grow cold. Then, in a low voice, he declared, "Now, you must face the wrath of the abyssal depths." But Lufan completely disregarded his words. There was not a shred of hesitation in his gaze. He simply raised his hand and signaled to his dragons, "Keep attacking." At the command, the dragons launched their next assault. Roaring energies, toxic flames, icy blizzards, and waves of destructive power rained down upon the demon in ceaseless succession. And yet, despite such ferocious attacks, the behemoth stood almost entirely unscathed. The wounds inflicted upon his body healed in an instant, as if the very concept of harm held no existence for him. Witnessing this, the demon chuckled softly. His laughter held a blend of both amusement and disdain. "Ha! This is truly interesting." Then, fixing his gaze upon Lufan, he spoke, "Yield now, and in return I shall grant you the power of 100 level 150 beings." His voice was laced with temptation. "The power of an ancient god, dominion over the abyssal depths. You could become a servant of the abyss and command its thousands of puppets." For a few moments, Lufan remained silent. He listened to the proposal with careful attention. Then a cold smile emerged upon his face. "So, you mean to suggest that I become the servant of an ancient god?" His voice dripped with sheer contempt. "I still remember the fate that befell Chen Tianji and the others. In the end, they were all killed." Having said this, and without wasting a moment, he issued another command. "Keep up the attack. Do not stop, not even for an instant." The roar of the dragons resounded once more, but at that very moment, the demon replied in a calm voice, "But I am different." His smile deepened further. "Not all ancient gods are alike. I can grant you permission to retain your identity." And not only that, a terrifying glint emerged in his eyes. "I can also pledge to offer you protection against the lesser ancient gods." His words continued to echo in the air a proposition, or perhaps an incredibly dangerous trap. Upon hearing this, Lufan truly paused for the first time. A faint flicker of curiosity sparked in his eyes. "Lower tier ancient god?" he asked in a low voice. "What do you mean? Is there a hierarchical system even among the ancient gods?" The demon smiled slightly, as if he had expected this question to be asked sooner or later. "Naturally." His booming voice reverberated throughout the entire region. "There are a total of 36 ancient gods. They are divided into 3 tiers, high, intermediate, and low. 12 gods in each tier." Pausing for a moment, he proudly puffed out his chest. "I am an intermediate tier ancient god. Although I have not yet assumed my true form, even so, my power is manifold greater than that of any lower tier ancient god." His gaze settled directly upon Lufan. "Listen, human, you are powerful. Of all the humans I have encountered to date, you are the most powerful." It was a compliment, yet the arrogance concealed beneath it could be clearly felt. Then his tone turned cold. "But you are still not worthy of facing an ancient god. You must accept this truth." He continued, "You are holding your ground before me right now only because I have just awakened." Then a chilling gravity settled into his voice. "But imagine the high-tier ancient gods, the corpse god, the ancient mountain god." At the mere utterance of those names, the very atmosphere seemed to grow heavy. Even immediately after awakening, their power is sufficient to obliterate an entire kingdom. Lufan listened silently. The contemplative glint in his eyes grew steadily deeper. A few moments later, he asked again, "I understand, so the corpse deity and the ancient mountain deity are high-tier ancient deities." Then his tone grew slightly more solemn. "In that case, into which tier did the divine bone ancient deity fall?" The demon gave a dismissive laugh. "Him? That pile of bones?" His voice was laced with disdain. "He was barely worthy of being called even a low-tier ancient deity." Upon hearing this reply, Lufan sank deep into thought. Images of ancient wars began to surface in his mind. A few moments later, he spoke slowly. "So, you mean to say that the divine bone ancient deity was merely a low-tier entity?" A sudden sharp glint flashed in his eyes. "In that case, the being whom the demon-devouring Dragon King defeated, was he too merely a low-tier ancient deity?" Taking a step forward, he asked, "Had he faced a high-tier ancient deity instead?" Would there have been even the slightest chance of his victory? Silence reigned for a brief moment. Then a mysterious smile appeared on the demon's lips. Once you have obtained my protection and my power, his voice was soft yet strangely captivating. Then you shall find the answer for yourself. The demon said, even the greatest things in this world are merely equal to the dust at the feet of the ancient gods.